We have a great show for you tonight. We will be joined by Marjorie Taylor Greene. Lots to talk to her about. Of course, we've got why did she leave Congress? How did she avoid becoming a swamp creature? This is something I've wanted to know, why so many people go to Congress bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they say they're going to make all this change, and then they just end up becoming a swamp creature. How did she avoid doing that? We're, of course, going to talk about the Epstein files, her thoughts on why Donald Trump is blocking them, what she thinks are in those Epstein files. Also, who she thinks is pulling the strings with Trump. Why has he seemingly abandoned much of the MAGA cause and instead has his eyes set on everywhere in the world except the United States of America? Who does she think is controlling him, if anybody? What is that motivation there? That and more is coming up here on The Kim Iverson Show. Marjorie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me today, Kim.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation, been wanting to talk to you for a long time. I have to say, I was one of those people that when you first came onto the scene, I was like, who is this crazy person? And more skeptical and thinking, I don't know. And the more I've followed you, the more I've listened to you, the more that I have heard your perspective on things, I just have an immense amount of respect for you. I adore you, to be honest with you. And I am so disappointed that you are no longer a member of Congress. We have just lost a good one. You are a real fighter standing for, and what I love about you, Marjorie, is that you actually stand for your principles and in the face of the beast. I mean, you have been going really, especially recently. You really stood your ground. So I have to ask you to start off, how did you avoid becoming a swamp creature? We have seen so many people go into Congress and they start off like with these bold ideas that they're going to make change. They're going to be doing this, that, and the other. Both sides of the aisle, I see this. And they get in there and they just become a swamp creature. How did you avoid becoming a swamp creature?
Well, I want to address the first part of what you said because it lines up with that question. Is I was not a polished politician when I ran for Congress. And so when I came on the scene publicly, it was messy. And it was messy because I had never served in any type of politics before, not in the state legislature, not in the county or the city. And I literally was your average American small business owner, mom, raised 3 kids that just decided I should run for Congress because I was so upset with everything that we see in Washington, D.C. And I was mad at both parties. I was like, there's no way I will ever align with the Democrats because of certain key issues. And I consider myself a Republican, but I was constantly mad at Republicans too, say the debt, for example, and many other issues. So when I ran for Congress in 2020, it was easy for me to get beat up by the media. It was easy for me to get beat up by the political industrial complex because I was naive and wasn't prepared for all that they threw at me. And so how did I avoid becoming a so-called swamp creature? It's because I never was one. And so when I got into Washington, I didn't go to Congress and all of a sudden think I was better than Americans or some type of special person just because I was a member of Congress. I actually entered into Congress with no respect for the institution because of what it has done to Americans' lives, what it's done to the value of the dollar, what it has done to our national debt, how it sent our fathers and uncles and brothers and friends and sons off to foreign wars to either get killed or just forever changed with PTSD and terrible injuries. And the tax system and so many in our borders and so many issues. So I didn't walk into the halls of Congress with great awe and feeling like, oh, this is the place I've always wanted to be. Not at all. I went in and for the 5 years that I served, was constantly frustrated, extremely angry. It wasn't a place where I was going to make friends. I already had friends. I didn't need to go make friends in Washington. I have wonderful friends. I have a great family. And I really went there to serve my district and and put into action the promises I had made to my district and the promises I had made on the campaign trail. For me, I don't really care about words. People can say all kinds of garbage all day long. It's literally about the actions that you deliver. And I have that because I'm a business owner. I can promise my customers through my construction company all kinds of promises and write all kinds of things in a contract and sign the contract with them, but none of it matters unless I deliver that on the job site for them. And that's how you get paid. When you're a business owner, you have to deliver the things that you promise. And so that is my mindset and my outlook, and that's what I took to Washington D.C. with me.
Well, let me point out some examples. So Alexandria, AOC, she was one that, and Bernie Sanders, these were two that I think people really looked at them as outsiders like yourself, going in. I mean, Bernie's always been there, but, AOC, for example, people voted her in. This was somebody that was going to go and be very disruptive. She got there, and I think on her first day, she staged a protest outside of Nancy Pelosi's office with like the Sunrise Kids or whatever, right? So, I mean, and people were like, we voted for her. That's what we voted for. I mean, that's what a lot of Democrats did vote for when they put her in there. But over time, she became a swamp creature. And, and Bernie Sanders, the same thing. After Hillary Clinton ended up being crowned queen, and Bernie just kind of fell in line. And suddenly this person who'd always described himself as an independent suddenly seemed to fall in line with all of the mainstream establishment Democrat talking points. And we've seen the same thing with AOC. We've seen this time and time again where Obama is a great example of this as well, where, people voted for him for change. A lot of people who voted Republican for many years voted for Obama thinking we're finally going to get some change. I mean, just the same thing happened with Trump. And Trump is, I think, the most glaring example right now, in my opinion. I mean, here's somebody that I had so much hope for the guy. Really, I was very positive about his election this time. I felt like the 2020 election, something was very off on that. I very much only to see that guy completely abandon what I think. I mean, depending on, I guess, your lens on that. But besides, I mean, I think he's done a great job on locking down the border. I mean, there's certain things, but otherwise just seemingly abandoning a lot of the reasons why people voted him in. And now he just seems to be doing the bidding of Israel and doing the bidding of whoever it might be. And so what happens there? Like, why is it that people like AOC, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, you get it on both sides of the aisle. What is it that causes people to go in there and just morph into these swamp creatures? And how did you avoid that?
Great question. Great. Well, I didn't. The system ended up coming after me, right? So here, let's break it down. This is such a good question. It deserves a very detailed answer. Both parties, it's a two-party system, and I call it the political industrial complex. You've got the Democrat Party, you've got the Republican Party, and this is literally an industry. Both parties are built on the political side, which are campaigns, political consultants, fundraisers, fundraising platforms, email companies, you name it. Every kind of business that runs campaigns that get candidates elected and they become politicians. So on top of the campaign base, the political base, then you have the elected institution of each party. You've got the elected Democrats, you have the elected Republicans. And no matter which party is in charge, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, they have to serve the major industries and the major donors that prop up the campaigns and keep these people elected. I know that is so hard to accept. It took me a long time to accept it and realize it, but that is the unfortunate and horrible reality that exists. So the people are told, you have to vote, you got to get in there and vote so we don't lose the midterms. If we lose the midterms, they're going to impeach Donald Trump. And then the Democrats are saying, you got to get in there and vote. You've got to stop Donald Trump. You've got to stop the Republican fascists and, yada, 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 on and on. And so the American people are gaslit day in and day out. And it happens through the media. It happens through the messaging. It happens through social media, happens through paid social media influencers. And that's a whole nother topic. But the American people are gaslit, and it's like a team sport. So it's like your team Democrat or your team Republican, and you are driven by fear of what one party may do or the other party may do, one leader may do versus what the other leader may do, and how it will completely destroy your life. And so you're constantly gaslit, and you live in outrage and fear and anger, and that's what drives people to donate money, drives people to volunteer on campaigns, drives people to vote. And that is how the political industrial complex works. But once you get elected, and so just so you know, I came in on the on the outside. I ran against 8 Republican men. All of them I respected. They all had great resumes. I was like, wow, I don't know how I'm going to beat these guys, but I beat them big time. And I had to put my own money in there. I put about around 1 million of my own dollars into a campaign account. I had no idea what I was doing. I hired the best people I could find at the time. And I beat the living crap out of those 8 guys. I won big time in my primary, but I didn't quite have over 50%. So I had to beat the second place guy in a runoff. I beat him, and then I went to Washington. And once I got to Washington, there's on both sides, you've got the DCCC, and then you've got the NRCC. So those are the Democrat and the Republican entities that once you become elected in Congress, you become a part of as a Democrat or a Republican, and you have to get in, and then you donate and pay money to your party. And so once I became an elected Republican, I was one of the few elected Republicans that paid all of my dues to the NRCC. I paid them all up front, every single Congress in full. And then I even donated more money to the NRCC because I was so on board with, we've got to win, we've got to hold the majority, we've got to stop the Bidens, these COVID lockdowns are killing people's lives, we've got to close the border. We've got to get Trump reelected, we've got to stop J6ers from being locked up and put in solitary. And I was on all these issues. And so I fought. And once I got there, I was like, okay, I'm fighting this. But here's the problem. The systems are so big and strong because they are backed big time by the military industrial base. They're backed by big pharma. They're backed by all types of businesses you can't even comprehend that are organized in such a way that they have lobbyists, and it is very real. And they come in and they put massive pressure on all the people that are elected in Washington. And they demand certain parts in bills, they demand certain amendments, they demand specific funding. And that's what keeps their industries supported. That's what keeps their industries receiving government contracts. That's what keeps their industries going. That's how they make money. Bottom line, that's how they make money. And then they'll tell people like me, let's say both of us are members of Congress. They come to us and they'll say, you've got about 10,000 people in your district that are employed with, XYZ defense contractor. And we're really going to need your vote coming up on the NDAA, because we have got to make sure that this is funded. And that way, these 10,000 constituents of yours, so they can keep their jobs. I mean, otherwise, if we don't get this government contract through to XYZ defense contractor, you don't want 10,000 of your constituents to lose their jobs, do you? I mean, that can really affect your next election. And so these conversations are very real, and they come in many different ways. And that's how, when people get elected, that's how they fall in line, and because they're pressured. And I'm giving you one example. The examples get much deeper, they get much darker, and they get a lot nastier. But this is one example of how politicians like AOC, Bernie Sanders, and others fall in line. And I'll give you a really good example on AOC. Bernie Sanders lost my respect when he caved when Hillary Clinton stole the election in the primary back in 2015. And he literally came around and endorsed her. Like, that was ridiculous. His election was completely stolen. But AOC I'll give you one on her. I had an amendment earlier in 2025, and my amendment was to completely defund Israel. And not only was I had Israel amended, I had Egypt, I had a bunch of countries. But when it came down to Israel, she refused to vote for my amendment to defund Israel. And so I'm telling you right now, she talks a big game, but her main mission right now is she has fallen in line with the Democrat establishment because she has higher aspirations for Senate or maybe a presidential
Yeah.
campaign. But that's what happens. They fall in line to the major industries or the major entities in specific foreign countries, because if they don't, they get destroyed. And
Yeah.
everybody watched it happen to me with the Epstein files when I refused to back off.
Right. Right. I think there's definitely probably different motivations. I mean, with Bernie Sanders, he'd been in that system for so long. I don't think he's ever had any other job other than being in politics. And yet,
Yeah.
I just think with him, it might have been Trump derangement syndrome. Like he was so motivated by hatred of Trump that he's like, well, yeah, he fell in line. AOC, I think you're right. I think there's there's a desire for more power there that has motivated her to maybe become a swamp creature. I'm trying to understand though. So when you first ran for Congress, you said you put your own money in.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there was some fundraising going on the local level to get you elected and to beat all of those guys. At that time, did all of these industries, did they start donating? Was the RNCC involved donating to your campaign? So you got elected
No.
without all of that pressure to begin with.
Yeah, let me be very clear. I had everyone against me. I had 34 Republican congressmen. Almost all the Republican congressmen from Georgia were donating against me. Were donating against my main primary Republican opponent. Steve Scalise was donating against me and organized his PAC against me. I had almost all of the state legislatures elected Republican, Georgia House and senators in the district. I was Georgia 14, all but two had endorsed my primary opponent, and pretty much every sheriff in the district had endorsed my primary opponent. So I had the entire establishment 100% against me. What I did is I literally took my message to the people of the district.
Yeah.
I worked harder than all 8 of those guys. I outworked them. And so I did have some fundraising. I worked very hard reaching out for fundraising, but I had to fight pretty much by myself.
Okay. So it wasn't the machine. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out, because that's just like AOC. I mean, I think she got elected on small donor donations. And, I don't think that the big machine backed her. I think she was going up against the machine just like you were, right? So, okay.
Yeah.
Then you get in there. So this is what I guess I don't understand. Then you get in there and then the machine comes around and the machine's like, wow, you have to vote this way and you have to vote this way. And I would imagine the threat they use is, otherwise we're going to pull our funding dollars. We're not going to fund your campaign, or we're going to run against you in the next election or something. I mean, I'm coming from the outside. I'm just speaking from a total outsider perspective of how we're viewing it, what we're thinking is happening here. So they're coming along and they're like, well, then we're going to fund you, against you in the primaries, or we're not going to fund your campaign. Why doesn't somebody just say, well, you didn't fund me the first time and I'm sitting here, who cares? Lock your door. Like, don't even talk to these people. Why even let them in your office? Like, why even listen to them at all? This is what, and then why even listen to their threat? Because their threat,
I didn't.
Right. I know you, right. And that's why, I'm amazed by you. You didn't become a swamp creature, but others, I'm trying to figure out, how could they even fall for that trap when it's like, all you have to do is say, okay, yeah, but you worked against me the first time and I'm still sitting here. So I'm still going to do what's best on behalf of my constituents. I'm not going to vote the way that you want. I'm not going to listen to, in fact, I'm not even going to take your meetings, do it Thomas Massey style with AIPAC. He's like, they're not even allowed in my office, right? Just don't even allow any of them in your office and just say, no, none of you are allowed in. I got voted. I'm here to serve my people and that's it. And then just like take it to social media every day and say, look at the pressure I'm getting. Oh, here's big ag coming in. Oh, here's big military industrial complex. Oh, here's big pharma, and just expose them day after day after day. I don't understand why more people, it's like you're in a club of your own where it was you and Thomas Massey and maybe Matt Gaetz. And I don't, not very many of you were willing to stand your ground and
Mhm.
just say, and I don't understand that there's hundreds of you, hundreds of people in there. Like, why can't they all just
Mhm.
lock their doors and just say, screw you? I didn't get here because of you anyway. So why you have no, there's no threat here. I guess that's what I don't
Right.
understand.
Well, but you're making that's just common sense. Everything you're saying makes perfect sense to anybody on the outside, but the truth that's hard for that people are having a hard time swallowing is most members of Congress don't want to be on the outside. They very much want to be a part of the establishment. They want the support from lobbyists. You want to know why? They and all these people in Washington, because they give them great fundraisers and they welcome them in, and there's cocktail parties and there's dinners and there's all kinds of elaborate events. And so for me, for 5 years in Washington, I didn't go to the cocktail parties. I didn't go to the fancy dinners. I didn't go to the elaborate events. I went to very few events. I most of the time I stayed home by myself. I went to bed early, got up early in the morning, worked out, and started my day. The reality is pretty much everyone in Congress except Thomas Massey and a few others are not part of it. I mean, they're all part of it. I'm sorry, there's only a few that are not part of it, and those few are pretty much gone now. So I think the biggest reality and the truth that people have to accept is that's not how it is in Washington. The political industrial complex is very much in charge, and everybody loves it, and nobody wants to be left out, and they want to be invited to the party.
So it's just a giant high school,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Is there
yeah.
is
It's
there as
human
much
nature. Yes,
division?
that's a great way
Yeah,
to describe it.
yeah, wanting to fit in, wanting to be part of the popular kids
Yep,
or whatever. I mean, just wanting to be invited to the lunch table. Okay, so
yep.
is there as much division actually on the inside as what we see on TV? Or are they all rubbing elbows together, at the parties, dating each other, sleeping together? I mean, this is my perspective, my perception of it. I, worked for a news outlet in DC, The Hill, for a little bit, and would go to
Mhm.
DC. I kept myself out of DC because when I go there, I
Good
noticed, and
for
they wanted
you.
me to move there. And when I got there, it was like, wait a minute, they're all literally dating each other, screwing each other. They're all going to parties together. Like they're acting like, oh, it's Republicans against Democrats. And on TV, they sit there and say, oh, the radical left or the fascist right. And then they go and they're literally married to each other.
Yeah, yes. I can't give any specific, I don't have any specific examples in my mind of a Democrat and Republican dating each other, but there's a lot of dating and sleeping with each other that goes around. But but yeah, no, there's a lot of theatrics. There is actual arguing. There is actual disagreements. There is actual, just basic, I guess, sheer venom between Republicans and
Okay.
Democrats. A lot of that is real that you see. However, there's also what I call the uniparty. There are specific Democrats and specific Republicans that, when it comes at the end of the day and it's appropriation bills, they will work together and fund each other's garbage. No matter how nasty it is, they will fund it together and all vote together for certain things. I'll give you a great example. Everybody lost their mind recently about the Somali daycare thing, right? People went crazy over the fraud, rightfully so. Oh my gosh, what a ridiculous scam. And but here, the Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill that passed the House, I believe it was earlier last week or the week before, that fully funded the refugee program at nearly $6 billion. And that's Republicans that did that. Republicans wrote that bill. Republicans voted on that bill. Democrats voted for it. And that bill is going to go to the Senate. And the reason why they keep funding those things in there is because they all are going to vote for it. They will lie to your face on TV and say, we've got to end the fraud and we've got to, go after these scams, and we're going to take down whatever it is that they're claiming they're going to fight. But then they turn around, they fund the program, and then they vote for it. And they did the same thing over and over. NPR, PBS. That was I was the chair of Doge Committee. We did a big explosive hearing on that. And we're all about defunding it. Well, when it came voting for CRs that Mike Johnson just loves so much, he gave us CR after CR after CR. Those CRs refunded NPR and USAID and all of these things. And so it's unbelievable, Kim, night and day between what they will tell you on their Fox News interview versus when it actually comes to what is in the legislation and where their votes go.
Why is that? Is it because of the lobbying?
It's because they will not fight. They're not there to fight. They're there to be a part of the system. They love it so much. They have a little pin that they put on their jacket and they get to walk around and they're congressmen and they get to go back to their district and eat nice dinners and be treated well. And they come up for reelection every 2 years. And then they go back up to Washington and they receive respect being called congressman and senator. They love it. It is a life they absolutely love. Now there's some good guys in there. There's some nice people in there that probably, if given the chance, if they had the right leadership, they would definitely vote the right way. But when it comes to actually fighting and forcing it, they won't do it. And it's not me just saying this. I think the proof is over and over and over. The American people have seen it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I'm not saying anything that's not true. The proof is in the pudding, and
Yeah.
it's just the reality. But you
What can we
can't
do
vote
to
your way
fix
out of
it?
this. You
So
can't vote
what
your way
can we
out of it.
do?
The people are going to have to refuse to support the political industrial complex. That's the only way you can tear it down. There's winning the midterms is not going to lower your health insurance. Winning the midterms is not going to fix our elections and stop election fraud. Winning the midterms isn't going to really change much in Washington, D.C. It certainly is not going to do anything about the national debt. They don't care about the national debt. We have a balanced budget amendment that every single year gets reintroduced into Congress. We all co-sponsor it. But no matter who the speaker is, Republican or Democrat, they never bring it to the floor for a vote. Same thing, we have a term limits bill. A whole bunch of us co-sponsor it, and every single Congress, they never bring the term limits bill to the floor for a vote because they don't mean it. They literally don't mean it. If term limits were in place, a bunch of these people would get term limited and then they'd have to leave Washington. They wouldn't have a job. You want to know why? Because they couldn't make it on their own 2 feet in the real world. They are not qualified and competent enough to actually run a successful business or go work an ordinary job like most Americans do. They're just not.
Yeah.
They're not competent enough people, but yet they're running our country.
Let's talk about the Epstein files. What did you or do you expect to see in them?
I expect to see a specific group of men that the victims themselves, they call themselves survivors of Epstein and others. They have a list, and they said they will know when the information comes out. Now, I don't have the list. I literally just said I gave a speech at one of our press conferences and said, if they wanted me to, I would read that list on the House floor, and I would have done it for them, but they never gave me the list. So I think they'll know. The survivors themselves will absolutely know when the real information has come out. But guess what? The real information has not come out. And, we've been told so many lies on this. And I think that was one of the big issues for people, that called themselves MAGA or voted for Donald Trump for the first time in 2024 is the Epstein list or the Epstein files stood for transparency and stood for taking down the whole government secrets and protecting rich, powerful elites, because everyone's sick of rich, powerful elites always get pardoned, right? Biden pardoned his people, Trump's pardoning his people, but yet ordinary Americans, if they don't pay their taxes, they're going to go to jail. It's the same story over and over again. And so for me, I said it a million times, release the Epstein files. And I meant it. Democrats, I kind of laugh at them because they had 4 years to do it. And then all of a sudden, when it became politically expedient, they were like, oh yeah, release the Epstein files. So that's kind of a joke. But there were only 4 Republicans, 4 of us, Thomas Massey, myself, Nancy Mace, and Lauren Boebert. We were the only 4 Republicans that really fought to get them released, signed the discharge petition, went against the White House, and we were all threatened and told. And you all saw what happened to me. Finally, Donald Trump called me a traitor because I refused to take my name off the discharge petition and said, no, I'm going to fight for women who were raped when they were 14 and 16 years old and trafficked and abused. No, that matters. And I refuse to take my name off the discharge petition. So yeah, I think the Epstein files need to come out. And if the administration continues to play games, they're breaking the law that Donald Trump signed. He signed that, and they have to release it all. And so if the administration doesn't release it all, I can't imagine why anybody would vote for Republicans to hold the majority. It's like, why would you give power to these people, to a party, and to an administration, to a White House, and to a president that is not going to release this information? I mean, to me, it's like a line in the sand. And I think it's that way for a lot of people.
Why do you think they're hiding them?
I think it's because it protects some of the most rich, powerful people. I think it protects government secrets. I think we know Jeffrey Epstein was definitely some sort of part of the intelligence state. I think we know he was working with Israel. He was working closely with Israel, the former prime minister of Israel, whose name is suspected to be one of those men. And I think these are the dirty parts of government and the powers that be that they don't want the American people to know about. And I personally don't think it'll all come out. I am disappointed to say that, but it hasn't come out yet. And I don't have any trust in government. So I don't think sadly, I don't think it'll come out.
Elon Musk at one point said, well, Trump isn't releasing them because Trump is in them. And then a lot of people were like, no, Trump hated Epstein. Trump, that's not true. And, like proof being in the pudding, Trump is doing absolutely everything Israel wants. I mean, it seems like he does their bidding. They say he's the best president for the state of Israel that the state has had. So, I mean, it looks like, if I had to bet that, yeah, he somehow is compromised because he's doing a lot for that country. And I mean, what's the other explanation for that? I don't know. But do you think that Trump is in the Epstein files?
Well, I've always gone by what the women themselves have said, what they've told me. So they've said over and over again that Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and so I'm taking their word. I think their word is what matters. Their attorney, he said that Donald Trump was the only one that helped them. So going by the women that I met and the attorney, if we take their statements at face value, then I believe that he didn't do anything wrong. However, it's like, why cover this up? And he and I had was one of our final discussions. It wasn't a discussion, it was actually an argument. And it was about me keeping my name on the discharge petition. And he told me, and I've said this publicly, he told me that his friends would get hurt. And to me, I'm like, I don't know why you would be friends with anyone that would do this to women and teenage girls. So again, crosses all lines for me. I could care less. I fought harder than anybody to get that man elected. Everybody knows it. I voted with him 98% of the time. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to bow to anyone when it comes to an issue of such morality. Especially when it comes to victims, innocent people that were abused by a system, not just by rich, powerful men, but also by a government that refused to help them when they begged for help over and over again. And so, I don't know. That's I don't know if
I
we'll
mean,
ever know.
I agree with you that if the victims are saying he did nothing wrong, then he probably did nothing wrong. But I also think that there's much more powerful forces to get you to. I mean, for me, for
Mm-hmm.
example, it'd be if somebody I loved was in the Epstein files, like if it was a family member or my wife or or husband or whoever, I don't know. I mean, that would be, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe not my spouse. Not depending on what role they were in the. There's people that speculate, oh,
Mm-hmm.
Melania was one of the women. I mean, look, they had a lot of models. It's possible she was a model. I mean, I know a lot of big name models that were potentially trafficked in they were the victims originally. And then kind of, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, there's a lot of that I think a person would maybe, I'm speculating, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
my point being, I think there's other powerful reasons why a person would say, I'm going to protect this. It's not because of my benefit, but it's
Mm-hmm.
because of somebody I care about. They're implicated in some
Yeah.
way in this, and I don't want to hurt them.
Or or it's because it could be that if you're living under blackmail, if you're living under threat, or you're afraid for your loved ones' lives, people that you care about, and you have been told that you're not allowed to release this stuff, or something bad may
Right.
happen.
Bad.
Let's put,
Yeah.
let's say you stood on a rally stage and you got shot in the ear, and that bullet was right by your head, and people, people in the crowd, like, my gosh, Corey Comprador, he got killed, and two other people were injured very badly, and he nearly died himself. I mean, maybe that was enough of a
Yeah.
threat to say, here's this, what, next time we won't miss, or next time that bullet might be for somebody that you care about. I don't know.
Right.
I'm just speculating, but I have a
Yeah. But
strong
those types
enough
of
reason to
influences.
speculate like that. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, or sex tapes of your daughter, sex tapes of your wife, or right, we could shoot you next time and we won't miss. And there's a lot of motivating factors other than, oh, you're in them. We have you hanging out with Epstein at the Pedo Island doing, yeah. There's other motivating ways to get a person to do what you want them to do. And protecting
Yep.
loved ones is a big one. I think for many of us that are brave, we'd be like, come after me all you want. I mean, you're certainly one of those brave people. But yeah, when they start attacking your children or your loved ones,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
different story.
When I got I'm telling you, when I got death threats on my own kids, serious death threats on my own children, and you piled that was like the final straw for me. I mean, I was like, okay, the president that I helped get elected, the leader of the Republican Party, is now calling me a traitor and says he's going to primary me, which is absurd. And then not a single elected Republican except Thomas Massey, not the Speaker of the House, not the Majority Leader, not the Whip, not the chairman of the NRCC, who I pay all my dues to, right? The party. Not one of them stood up for me and said, you know what, Mr. President, Marjorie is actually really, she helped you get elected. She campaigned all over the country for you. She never stabbed you in the back when everyone else did after January 6th. She's not a traitor. Like, then all that happened to me. And then these death threats came in on my kids. Let me tell you, everybody has a point where they're willing to say this isn't worth it anymore. And
Yeah.
so I get it.
Who do you think is influencing Trump? What has happened with MAGA? I mean, it's just seemed to have done a total flip on what MAGA was supposed to be about, make America great again.
Mhm.
And then Trump gets in there and all he does is talk about other countries, Canada, Greenland,
Yeah.
Iran, Venezuela, like Cuba, Mexico. I
Yeah.
mean, the list goes on and on. What, what happened with MAGA and who's influencing Trump, do you think?
Well, I thought MAGA to me was about make America great again. There's only one country in that phrase, America. I was a true believer, absolutely bottom line true believer. America first. I was like, heck yeah, our tax dollars shouldn't go to any other foreign country. No foreign cause, regime change. Who cares? Iran's got 93 million people in their country. If they want to overthrow their government, take 93 million people and go do it. Like, I could care less about Iran. I don't care about Israel. I don't care about Ukraine and Russia and China. I don't care about Venezuela. I don't care about any of them. I care about America. I care about our problems. I care about the fact that my kids who are Gen Z will never be able to afford life. That whole generation, they probably won't be able to buy a house. They can't afford health insurance. They can't afford car insurance. Most of their jobs are going to be replaced by AI. Like, that's the stuff I care about. But after we won the election in 2024, a few months in, and MAGA started turning into MIGA. And it started turning into whatever country Donald Trump said it was about. And here we're sitting here today, and you and I are having a discussion. And the president put out on his Truth Social yesterday that he's got a giant fleet going over to Iran because of the protesters over there. Well, I'm sorry, we've got civil war practically breaking out in Minnesota. Can we not care about that? And care about the fraud and care about all these issues here in America? So, no, MAGA is, I think people are realizing it was all a lie. It was a big lie for the people. What MAGA is really serving is, in this administration, who they're serving is their big donors, the big donors that donated all the money and continue to donate to the president's PACs and donate to the 250th anniversary, and are donating to the big ballroom. And if they're donating to all these things, those are the people that get the special favors, they get the government contracts, they get the pardons, or somebody they love or one of their friends gets a pardon. And it's the foreign countries that are running the show here. It's the major big corporations and what is best for the world. That's really what MAGA is. That's the results. That's what we're seeing after one full year of MAGA. We are seeing war on behalf of Israel. We are seeing the people in Gaza, innocent people in Gaza, hundreds of thousands of them completely murdered so that they can build some new real estate development and money can pour in and everybody can get rich there in the new Gaza. And we're seeing a whole plan play out, which is really a new world order. It's a new way of doing business. And that's it's kind of like the Scooby-Doo meme where, they pull the mask off the bad guy. Well, the mask is being pulled off, and Make America Great Again isn't really about America or the American people. It's not about the American people.
How did Trump fall into that trap? I mean, it seemed like he was so, leading the charge with MAGA, and he was going to be the one draining the swamp. And instead, he's definitely become a giant swamp creature, the leader of the swamp at this point. But somebody's got to be influencing him, or people around him have to be convincing him that going to war with Iran is the right thing to do, which is totally and completely insane.
Well, I question that myself, knowing I know the president, worked with him for quite a few years, traveled with him, campaigned with him, visited him, talked with him on the phone, text message with. I mean, I know the president. I don't know. People always think, oh, it's his staff. They want to blame everyone around him. There may be a point where people have to come to grips with, this is Donald Trump. He's pretty hard to tell what to do. If anybody that knows President Trump knows you can't push him around, you can't tell him what to do. He can be influenced by people. Certain people definitely do influence him based on things they tell him. But is anybody really making him do these things? I think that's one question you can ask. Another question you could ask is, again, what did that bullet in Butler, Pennsylvania do? And what goes behind that? And what does that mean? And is it influencing specific decisions? I would imagine maybe. And, lastly, it's been pretty amazing. Look, I have no hate for any people group. I am not anti-Semitic. I've got Jewish friends. I like all kinds of people. I love all kinds of people, but I can criticize any government in the world I want to criticize. I criticize my own government. I'll criticize China's government. I'll criticize all kinds of governments, and I can criticize the government of Israel. Look, That's my freedom of speech. That doesn't make me hateful or anti-Semitic. And I shouldn't even have to say that. But when we went from no more foreign wars, no more regime change, promising that on the campaign stage, and so did the president, and so did so many other people, quickly into Lindsey Graham's, Bush 2.0 neocon plays here, where we're going to every single war Israel wants us to, and starting to censor certain things on social media platforms. It's pretty hard for regular Americans to not question, why is this happening? And I think they're right to question it, and it's like I'm Generation X. I'm 51 years old, and I'd say about half of our generation is really sick of it, very fed up with it. But the
Yeah.
generations below us, oh my gosh, the millennials and Gen Z especially, they're done. They're absolutely done. And they're not coming back. They're not coming back. No matter the threats, no matter the brainwashing, no matter what anybody says or does, they're just not coming back, because they're the generation that has so far been failed the most. And so to them, Donald Trump and Make America Great Again and all the awesome videos and memes and sport figures and showing up at cool events and walking in with badass music and all this stuff that Gen Z saw all over their social media feed, TikTok and everywhere else. And they go out and they voted in 2024 and they voted for Trump, and they're like, hell yeah, finally somebody's going to get in there and be a badass and fight for us. But yet now we're seeing America's military go out and, go in there and yank Maduro out and Venezuela. And we're all like, who cares about Venezuela? And we got to go over there and we got to bomb Iran, even though, I mean, Kim, I can remember in the 1990s, on the news, them saying Iran is months away from making a nuclear bomb. I mean, how many times have they said it? Guess what? We haven't been bombed yet. We haven't been
Right.
bombed. And after 9/11, we really sucked into that stuff because 9/11 was horrible. And we still haven't been bombed yet by Iran.
Yeah.
And they've told us think about this. Oh my gosh, every Hollywood movie you watch, who are the bad guys? Russia. For so long, Russia's the bad guys and the villain is Russian. And we're supposed to be hating Russians, but yet Russia hasn't done anything to me. I don't feel offended or hurt by Russia. As a matter of fact, I don't even think about Russia. I'm pretty impressed they're such a Christian country, So it's things like that people are just really, no matter what they say on the news anymore, it doesn't work. And, I'll just wrap with this one thought. When you watch people watching Fox News every day, 24/7 with their volume turned all the way up in their living room and it's so loud that you can't hear anything else, those are the baby boomers. And God bless them. Those are my parents' generation. I love so many of the baby boomers, but they are the most brainwashed generation because they eat that crap, like they just eat it up all day long. They're spoon fed the propaganda on TV, and but they don't have much longer. And so I don't know how the political industrial complex is going to continue to brainwash Americans, because we're just not brainwashed anymore.
What do you think is the future for us? Where do you think we're headed? I mean, I never would have guessed the beginning of the Civil War would be breaking out in Minneapolis, but it does seem like Minneapolis has been the hotbed of the uprisings over the last, since George Floyd. The rhetoric online, it's very, very, Americans are against each other. It's very hateful. It's very vitriol. I feel like there's forces behind them that are trying to get us to hate each other, so that, for what purpose? Maybe to reel us into a civil war so that they could then do the New World Order on us, like enact all kinds of surveillance and take away a lot of our freedoms, tons of freedom. I mean, how bizarre is it that right now all these Republicans are arguing against the Second Amendment, essentially? Just like so many Democrats during COVID were arguing against my body, my choice. Like suddenly the pro-choice Democrats suddenly were no longer pro-choice, right? When it came to the COVID vaccine. I mean, it's just the hypocrisy, the flipping, where do you think, where do you see us? Where do you think we're headed? Do you think we're headed to civil war?
I think it's again, it's the political industrial complex. Look, they play Americans so hard. They have to. That's how their business model works. They have to turn Americans against each other and create hate between Democrats and Republicans because that's how they drive donations. That's how they drive votes. So it's the political industrial complex, and the media plays a part too because that's how they make money. If the media has you addicted to, oh my God, civil war in Minnesota, you're going to watch it all day long on their news stations, and their ad revenue is going to be great because they're getting so many views. And so the ad buyers are spending a bunch of money. That's how it works. But the reality is most Americans don't want to fight each other. I mean, what people see on X is hyper focused political bullshit. It is absolute bullshit. When people get off and put the screens down and put their phones out and you walk out and you talk to your neighbors and you go to the store and you get out in the real world, people actually want to get along. I mean, yeah, you're going to bump into your occasional like some Democrat that hates Republican that hates Democrat. Yeah, that's out there. But most Americans don't care about any of this crap. But I'm telling you, and I can't reiterate this enough, they want to feed it to you. They want to brainwash you to the point where regular Democrat voters are like, some mom goes in her minivan and she's like all joined up into spotting and watching ICE and all this stuff, that she ends up getting herself, or she ends up, I'm not going to say she got herself killed. She ended up getting shot in the head and she's dead. And then you've got this guy, what is his name? Alex Pretty. Alex Pretty was he was a nurse and he was all these things. And then he ends up, I guess he lost his job and he gets so sucked into the madness that he's out there. And I'm going to defend his right to carry a gun all day long because I believe in the Second Amendment, period, shall not be infringed. So I defend that guy's right to carry a gun, but ICE disarmed him. They disarmed him and then they shot him dead when they had him down on the ground. So I think that's a serious problem. But look at how these people are getting sucked in to these crazy protests. Well, guess what? I'm going to say our people are doing the exact same thing. They get so outraged and get so sucked into it that they will show up and get out there, and they're getting in fights with people on the ground in Minnesota. We saw the same thing during BLM. We saw the same thing with Antifa. We saw the same thing on January 6th. We see the same thing over and over again. But what Americans need to realize, it is the political industrial complex that fuels this and fuels your anger so much at the other side that people are actually dying for it. And you want to know how you stop it? Is you go, no, I refuse to be a part of this. I'm not going to be a part of this. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not going to spend my money on it. I'm not going to lose my life for the love of God for politics. But what you do is Americans need to force the issues that matter in politicians' faces. I would say health insurance is a pretty important one. I would say the fact that you're taxed on literally everything from your car tag to your car insurance to your house. I mean, everybody's taxed on everything. I would say that's something to shove in politicians' faces. I would say data centers are something to shove in politicians' faces. And the fact that you need to protect our jobs and AI cannot replace humans. Humans matter. People matter. No, we don't want to be replaced by AI. I think it's when, and I'm just being really honest with you, Kim, it's when Americans stop getting sucked in, and it's hard. It's really hard. But when Americans stop getting sucked in and used and told, this is what you're supposed to be mad about. This is what you're supposed to care about. This is what you're supposed to fight for. We're going to fight for this. And you're not a loyal Trump supporter if you're not out there fighting for it. And you're not a loyal Democrat if you're not out there fighting for it. When people stop doing that and saying, no, F you, F you, you know what matters to me is the fact that houses cost too much money, rent is too high, we can't make enough money, my family's got to work 2 or 3 jobs, married couples can't have one spouse stay home and raise the children anymore, the dollar is shit, it's not worth anything anymore, and here we are at approaching $40 trillion in debt. I think when Americans get up and they shove that in the faces of politicians that they vote for and elect and say, no, we're not gonna get sucked in anymore. I think that's when it might change. But it's gonna take Americans being really committed to do that.
What's next for you? Are you a Republican? Did you announce that you're now an independent? Are you joining The View?
No, I haven't. I haven't left the Republican Party. I would argue
Okay.
the Republican Party has left me, and probably a lot of other Republicans. I haven't switched to an independent. I have not joined The View. I'm definitely not a Democrat. I have one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, and I'm America first, and not whatever MAGA has turned into.
Are you going to run for governor of Georgia?
Oh, Lord God. Everybody asks me this. Okay. I've said it over and over. No, I'm not running for governor. I've put out statements on my social media like a year ago saying I'm not running for governor. I'm not running for Senate. I put out, it was an article. It was an article on X about all the reasons I'm not running for Senate. Are you running for president? I'm not running for president. I'm very much, look, I'll say it like this. Politics was literally, I served 5 years in Congress. Actually, I lived up to my term limit pledge better than anybody. So I've spent 6 years, 1 year campaigning, 5 years in Congress. That was a very small percentage of my adult life. So I'm very happily doing normal things, spending time with my kids, my family, my friends, and catching up on life that I missed out on for the past 6 years.
But we need you.
Well, I would say if I'm needed, I would need the American people to wake up to the stuff I'm trying to tell them before I ever thought about going back.
Don't leave us. Don't leave us. That's my plea. I mean, I would just love to see you jump back in somehow, some way. It was really sad to see you go. Was hoping that there was maybe
Oh,
some
thank you.
pivot to something bigger and better, and maybe where you could be more effective, like governor of Georgia. I think you shouldn't rule that out. I think you should still maybe go for
Mhm.
that, where you could actually make some real effective change on a local level. I think more and more Americans are waking up to local politics and realizing that,
Oh yeah.
it's so funny. Yeah, and it's funny to see the
Hmm.
Democrats, right? They were always so big government and federal government. And now they're becoming like small government, small local government. We want to run ourselves because we want to make sure everybody's vaccinated in our little city or whatever. It's like, okay, whatever your motivation is. But yeah, it's
Right.
a good idea for each of us to kind of run our own enclaves because we're all so different. We have different viewpoints. And the great thing about being an
Mhm.
American, which myself, I just moved back to Idaho from Los Angeles, and I was born
Mhm.
and raised in Idaho, is that I can choose. What's great about being an American is you can choose where you want to live that fits your political or your lifestyle, better, the way you want to raise your family or be surrounded by people with the same
Mhm.
viewpoints or whatever. And we have that freedom to do that. But I think more people are waking up to local, and I would just love to see
Yes.
you do something on the local level, like governor or so I'll just keep planting that, like governor of Georgia, Marjorie, governor,
Thank you.
Governor Taylor Greene. Doesn't that sound good? Governor Taylor Greene? See? Uh,
I don't know. I tell you what, it's a lot of people would have to a lot of people have to see the truth before I would ever think about doing anything again. Yeah,
all
but I
right.
agree with you on local. That is the best advice. People can actually change their city. They can change their city and their county, and they can affect things in their state. But that machine up in Washington is pretty fixed.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, thank you so much for this great conversation, this candid conversation. Just again, gonna miss you a lot, but hopefully you'll be back on this show, and so I don't have to miss you too much, and because hopefully you get your voice out there, and your viewpoint, your stance. There's so many Americans who stand with you. There's so many Americans who share your viewpoint. I think more Americans than not, and we need people to still speak up rather than all of us who are more independent and
Mhm.
fighting the machine. We don't want to go silent so that then the machine just, does its thing and
Right.
gaslights us all and continues to brainwash us. So hope to see you. So hope to still see you. Hope to still see more of you, Marjorie. So thank
You
you so much
will.
for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can watch Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific at KimIversonShow.com. See you there.